All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday, February 13th, 2020 meeting of the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Manager Neal. Executive Director Neal, would you call roll, please?
Thank you, Your Honor. Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Brindle.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Staunton. Chair Hovland.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. For those of you that care to join HRA members in saying the Pledge of Allegiance, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a form of meeting agenda in front of us this morning. Is there anyone that wishes to modify the agenda? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as shown.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion second to adopt the meeting agenda as published. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Community comment. Anybody care to share with the HRA what you've been talking about for the past half hour? No? Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda, and we've got one item on the consent agenda, which are the draft minutes of the regular meeting on January 16th, 2020. Is there a motion to adopt the draft minutes of the regular meeting on January 16, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion second to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting on January 16, 2020. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. And now we are on to the heart of the work this morning, which is the reports and recommendations portion of the agenda. And the first matter we have there is the potential approval of a loan agreement with the Edina Housing Foundation for the purchase of the property located at 4040 West 70th Street. And our Affordable Housing Development Manager, Stephanie Hawkinson, has this matter for us this morning, and we have our legal counsel from Dorsey here, as well as our HRA attorney here this morning to help guide us on any legal issues that are involved. So, Ms. Hawkinson, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. You have in your packet the loan agreement, the note, and the mortgage. I just thought I'd get, this whole process for this property has been kind of fast. So I thought I'd just give, since you work on a lot of other issues, a little bit of a timeline of where we've been. So it was just October that we submitted a non-binding letter of interest to the seller. Then it was October 24th where you were first introduced to the concept of acquiring this property for public purpose of providing affordable housing. We revisited the issue in November because the question was raised on do public entities get involved with the private market? Do we involve ourselves when property's for sale? Do we put our bid in? And we determined at that time that a lot of other communities, our neighbors and nationally do this. And so it got comfort level with having the HRA be involved with this. Even though it was the Edina Housing Foundation that had put in the letter of interest and signed the purchase agreement, they were seeking a loan from the HRA in order to complete this transaction. So we had a purchase agreement signed in early December, and then we had to go through the process because we were talking about using Southdale 2 TIF pooled funds in order to acquire this property. So we had to go through the public process of being able to modify the TIF district and the TIF plan that would include this property so we could use the funds for acquisition. So that's a little bit of background to refresh you on where we've been. We had the public hearing, it was all approved, the resolutions were approved. So this loan agreement before you, we had a term sheet that was also approved in December. And in that term sheet said that the property is going to be acquired for $3.8 million. Well, we did, the foundation underwent their due diligence for environmental review and surveys, and there is some remediation that's going to be required on the site. And so the seller has agreed to reduce the purchase price by $150,000. So the loan agreement now is for $3.65 million to acquire the property. interest rate at 0%, so this is all consistent with the term sheet. The maturity date, it will be June 1st. We don't anticipate closing on this actually until June 1st. When this first was drafted, we thought we were going to be closing at the end of this month. But in the purchase agreement, the seller had the option to extend the deadline in case they needed more time to find an alternative site for their business. They have opted to use that extension, and so that time runs out June 1st. So anytime between now and June 1st, we'll be closing. Security for the HRA on this loan will be a note and mortgage on the land, and this is a non-recourse. So some of the highlights are that this is in the Southdale 2 Tax Increment Financing District, that the foundation will proceed with seeking an affordable housing developer for 100% affordable age-restricted development. The affordability period will be compliant with, if not exceed, the TIF regulations, and that would be at least 25 years, but our hope at the foundation is to have it longer, 40 if not perpetuity. The foundation, and through me, will provide the HRA with periodic status reports on where we're at with finding a developer, who the developer is, what is being designed. The HRA will pay the loan closing costs. The foundation will identify and hold harmless HRA against all liabilities. This is pretty standard. And in the event of a default, the HRA may assume ownership of the property. So, that is all I have for you, but we do have our attorney here if there are any sort of business points or questions regarding the legal documents.
Questions for Ms. Hawkinson? Member
I do.
Brindle?
So if you would go back to the last statement on page 3 of your presentation, page 3. This is page 4.
Oh, excuse me.
Page 3. Okay, so it says non-resource loan, and you said non-recourse loan.
I meant non-recourse. That's a typo.
It's a non-recourse?
Yeah.
Okay, would you define that for me, please?
Do you have the legal definition, Alex? May I turn to you?
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Alex Selke, Dorsey and Whitney, Special Counsel to the HRA. Non-recourse loan essentially means that instead of repayment of the debt, if there's a default, the HRA's remedy is to take the property back. There are some exceptions to that for particular bad acts that the foundation might do, which we don't expect to occur. But generally, non-recourse means that the lender's rights are in the property instead of repayment of the debt.
And the reason we have done that, if I may add, is the foundation, as individual board members and as the foundation, they don't have the assets to be able to pay back in cash the money if they were in default.
Okay.
And we didn't want you to have we were protecting them against being sued as individuals and as a foundation.
Okay. All right, thank you.
This is a side question. I guess it's a follow-on to what we just talked about here in terms of the non-recourse loan, but to insulate and protect those board members at the foundation, is there insurance that's carried by the foundation to cover that director and officer potential
Chair Hotling,
liability?
yes, we have insurance.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. Just one question, and I picked something up in here. You discussed the TIF district limit being up to 40 years, and I think you were talking about the affordability of the project. Accurate or inaccurate?
That is accurate. The TIF district itself would not be 40 years.
Yeah, so we're just talking about extending or creating affordability. Yes, thank you.
Period affordability.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. All right, any other questions for Ms. Hawkinson? This is not a public hearing matter. So we've got the loan agreement, the note, the mortgage, the so-called loan documents between the HRA and the Edina Foundation for $3.65 million. And the motion would be to approve those three documents, the loan agreement, the note, and the mortgage, the so-called loan documents between the HRA and the Edina Foundation for $3.65 million. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the loan agreement, note, and mortgage, the so-called loan documents between the HRA and the Edina Foundation for $3.65 million. Any further discussion?
Just one. I just want to confirm that the maturity date, 3.3 sub A in the mortgage is 2 years.
Chair, Commissioners, the maturity date is 2 years with the option of 2 one-year extensions.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the
Yes,
motion?
yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
thank you, thank
I
you.
thought you were just getting
Ju-
poised to vote there.
Just to mention, you know, when this proposal was first brought forward, I had some concerns about the city acquiring land for development or moving into the development business by proxy. But I'm satisfied under this arrangement because we're creating a much-needed housing element in the city of affordable housing that is age-restricted. I'm hopeful that we wind up with a nonprofit developer who has great familiarity and does a great job there. While this may not quite be the time for this, also because we're on this topic, there was a resident who was chatting after the town hall meeting in this past fall about this particular project, and her comments were that there were so many apartments and they all looked the same, and was hoping that the look here would be a little different, maybe a little bit better. And while I was explaining that at this time we don't have a architectural review process for it, a person whose opinion I respect deeply mentioned, yes, but when the city has control of the project, then it can have a different look, and we can do something that's a little bit different. So I'm just hopeful that we can do that, and I wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment? Yeah, this has been a new journey for the HRA and for the council, I think, and the fact that this property was at the onset deemed to be an appropriate location for age-restricted housing, for senior housing, was, I think, quite intriguing to everybody that was involved, from the foundation to the HRA to the council. So I think it'll end up being a terrific project. But working our way through some of those issues that Ms. Hawkinson discussed this morning took a bit of time. But all in all, when you look at the overall time horizon that's involved here, it's been fairly short. So having said that, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. We've got one other thing to talk about this morning, and that is a topic that Executive Director Neal is going to introduce, and that is potential acquisition of a piece of property at 425 Jefferson Avenue South that's got some issues, and Executive Director Neal will discuss those with us now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies for the late emergence of this issue onto your agenda today, but as you know, sometimes real estate matters move quickly, and we have to use some opportunistic opportunity sometimes. So in this particular one, I think you all have heard from neighbors of this property. They've been concerned for a couple of years about its condition. We have, through our public health and through our building official and his group, been pursuing nuisance abatement without really much success at this site. We finally put sort of our affordable housing hat and our nuisance abatement hat together, and really thought maybe the best way to abate this nuisance would be to purchase the property and rehab it into an affordable single-family home. And that's really what we are seeking, kind of your initial support for doing. We have reached out and started a discussion, and the owner is actually interested in this as an option. We think that between the legal costs that we could avoid and the abatement costs that we could avoid and the advantages of getting this taken care of much quicker than we could through any sort of due process that is available to property owners in this kind of case, we could actually get this issue resolved and have an affordable single-family home, which are pretty difficult to find in Edina. So what we're looking for today is simply your authorization to have a more serious discussion with this property owner. Anything we would put together would be a tentative purchase agreement. We'd bring that back to the council along with a plan about how we would rehab this property and how it would be redeployed back into the market.
Good. Well, looking at some of the photos, it sure seems like it's a legitimate concern for the neighborhood, and I would think for the homeowner who seems to just not be able to deal with some of the issues of day-to-day living. So thoughts from commissioners on this general idea of authorizing the executive director to go forward with at least some negotiations on the property? And I think that's all we're talking about.
Yep.
Right.
At this particular point in time is potentially authorizing the executive director to go forward and do some negotiating on this particular potential acquisition.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
There's been a lot of interest, as you mentioned, in that property and how it's affecting, excuse me, the immediate neighborhood and so on. So I think it's a good idea to grab this thing. As a rule, we've been moving more into the property management business by default here and there. It's not a great place to be, I don't believe, for the city, just because of liability concerns and the possibility of something occurring on site, if it's going to be a long-term hold. There's several options once the site is acquired and cleaned up. Have you inspected it, taken a walk through?
I personally have not, but we've had staff from 3 different departments who have been inside the property. And I would note that since these photos, there's been a fire in the property as well. So
Wow.
that's complicated it a little bit more.
So can it be rehabbed, be structurally sound?
Actually, our building official thinks that it can.
Okay, all right. And then the disposition, if you were speculating on disposition?
Actually, we've had some exploratory discussions with some affordable housing organizations that are interested in perhaps managing it in using it and being the property manager and for the site. So that's a pretty good option. We don't have anything pinned down yet. That's what I meant when we bring them back. But,
Understood.
yeah, but that's one option.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Yep, Commissioner Brindle.
thank you. I don't think this is the first time the city has purchased a piece of property that is beyond livability. For some reason, I think there have been other times that the city has purchased a piece of property, rehabbed it, and made it available for sale. I can't cite one because it's been a long time. It's before my time in this chair. But I think there is precedent for this when a situation does come up. And being able to take advantage of the opportunity, which is then, I think, the benefit for all here, to get a hold of it as quickly as possible, which it sounds like helps the property owner, the current property owner, and then turns around and makes it available as an affordable home, which fulfills a goal that we have, is in preserving a single-family home. Because certainly this could go to the market, could be purchased by a builder, could be torn down and replaced with a home. So ultimately, it helps the current homeowner and makes an affordable single-family home. So I sincerely hope that it can be rehabbed as it is, the structure as it is. I hadn't heard about the fire, so that's a regrettable situation, but I look forward to hearing more about this. And thank you to the neighbors for bringing it to our attention. Thanks.
I like the flexibility that we have with the HRA as a tool to get involved in situations where there's public health, safety, welfare concerns. And I certainly see that in the photographs of the home here, and worry about who the occupants are and how they're doing from a health standpoint. So, and who knows what their motivation might be with respect to the private sector versus the public. They may have thoughts about the city that are more positive than they might have about otherwise disposing of their property. So to be able to use the HRA as a vehicle to be able to get into a situation quickly where we can abate a public health, safety, and welfare problem without the machinations of the court system that you described, which we had down at 58th and Wooddale for years, year after year after year after year. I think this is really quite a potential win-win situation. I share Commissioner Anderson's concerns, but I think in working with the Housing Foundation and figuring out, well, how to do this, and maybe developing and having a sidebar with Chair Swenson that they're talking about creating their own land trust situation, that we will be able to come to a really great solution here, and it gets to be a win-win-win all the way around for the homeowner, for the neighbors, for the city, and for the foundation in terms of the ideas they have on working on affordable housing. And this is one more area of housing affordability that we've been trying to figure out what to do on, because it's complicated when you get to single-family ownership. Right. But this gives us a great chance to do that. So I'm all in favor of giving you the authority to go ahead and see if we can negotiate something that makes some sense here. Is there a motion? I hear unanimity of opinion here expressed different ways. Is there a motion to authorize the executive director of the HRA to negotiate a tentative purchase agreement for the acquisition of 425 Jefferson Avenue South in Edina?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion second to adopt the motion as stated. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Good. We don't have any correspondence on the dais this morning, and do any of the commissioners have any comments they wish to share with our quorum?
We do. And we do have a
Bare quorum?
I do, thank you. It came to mind last night. Even I take a look at the project that we discussed earlier on West 70th and others, and I think I feel strongly about the fact that as we go forward on these projects and others receiving the benefit of public funding, taxpayer dollars, I think it's important to provide strong financial stewardship. Right now, we have a quite excellent tool with the Maxfield Research Housing Needs Analysis to provide a well-researched opinion on housing demand and potential absorption. So I think it's appropriate, even necessary, to require a developer to submit their guidance instrument, normally it'd be an area market study, and overlay this in the future against the Maxfield Research analyses, so that we have a comparison moving back and forth. And I think that, combined with a pro forma analysis which justifies the project, and then as a result justifies taxpayer support of that project, I think that this is good guidance, and I think it's the best tool that we can employ as we go forward here. And it becomes very clear to people that we are in diligent pursuit of what is in the long-term best interest of the residents and the city. And I really strongly suggest that going forward, and hope that we can consider that moving into protocol.
All right, good. Well, let's have that discussion when we have a full complement of commissioners and also at the council level.
And, Mr. Chair, I think as I've mentioned further, we are continuing to work on getting a work session scheduled with Mary Bujold, so you can get that presentation that she gave to the Housing Task Force directly.
All right, good, thank you. Anything else? All right. Is there a motion?
Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, yes. There we go. All right. We stand adjourned.